D-18, 1939, authentic, aged. That's a lot of stuff. We've seen this guitar a lot. I did a whole neck reset series on this guitar, talking about getting an angle right and why it was needing another neck reset. How I'd already done one, maybe two neck resets on it. And what I did concluded, and I think my conclusion was correct in that case, is I did the first neck reset when it was young, and that was simply because the factory didn't give it enough neck angle to begin with. And then as the guitar aged, then it crept into what would be the stable position, and so then it needed another neck reset. For me, neck resets are fairly easy. It's just a matter, it's taking the neck off and putting the right angle on it, and it's just not that big of a deal. On a guitar that's light like this, it moves a lot. And this is a light guitar. This is a lightly built guitar. It's built pretty much just like the real 1939 would be. I've dealt with 1939s and pre-war Martins. It's built pretty much like that. It's a light build. It's very responsive to humidity. That might have been some of the issue as to why it needed neck reset. I keep humidity stable, and I know I do, and I don't know what happens when it's out there in the world. But anyways, it's been strung up now for, I have to check and see, at least 3 or 4 months. The owner of the guitar, let me keep it to use in videos like this. So I have had this guitar in my possession for quite some time, and it's been stable. In fact, when I pulled it out of the case for this video, it was still in tune. I barely tweaked the low strings, and so that's great. I like to see that because that means the guitar is stable. So anyway, this guitar sold, and of course, I have first rights of refusal on it. I passed on it. And the reason I passed on it is simply because I have another video that says why no D guitar will ever be my number one guitar. So even though this is like one of my favorite D-18s ever, I let it go. And the reason is because I have a 72 D-18 that is modified. It's not as good as this guitar, no question. I have a video on that too, comparing the 72 versus this one. But the thing about the 72, I don't have much money in it. I actually swapped it for work. So I have about less than $1,000 in the actual guitar. And then I did the work to it. And when I did the work, I turned it into a 2 1/4 inch bridge spacing, which I love. And it also has a slightly V neck to it. And I've had one of these before. I had one of the non-aged, non-torrified, all that stuff. I had one of the original ones in 14, 11, I don't remember when they were, but it was one of the first ones. And I really like that guitar too, but as I played it more and more, it's got a certain C shape to it here on the neck. On the back of the neck is just slightly C shaped. And I had another video actually where I was comparing it to a 70s D-18, and every time I picked up the other 39 D-18, every time I picked it up, I go, gosh, this neck is skinny. And I had this 70s D-18 on the bench, and gosh, this neck is perfect. So I got my calipers out, and I started measuring things, and much to my surprise, and believe me, I was amazed at this, they were identical. They were probably the most identical guitars I have ever calipered as far as the width and the depth. They were so close, I could not measure any difference. So they had exactly the same width all the way up the neck and depth all the way up the neck. And I was like, wow, there is a definite difference. Feel. And the only difference that I could really come up with, which was hard to quantify, it's hard to measure, was the curve of the back of the neck. And the 70s had a V on it, a very definite soft V, And the other 39 had a very, very round baseball bat, C-shaped neck. And I said, that's got to be it. So I sold that one. So I sold that 39 and I invested the money into a 70s D-18 for myself. So then later on, I got this guitar and the owner sent it to me. And the first thing I noticed was the neck was more comfortable. When I pick this guitar up, I do not feel, oh, that's a skinny neck. So between the regular non-aged one and this aged one, and of course these necks are hand carved, this neck came out better, and it's got a terrific taper up and down the neck, which I like an even taper. I do not like the 37 D-28 where it goes into this massive fast taper. This neck is very comfortable, and it's fun because it's got a little bit of wear up on here, which I'm not sure if I put in there or if that's the age part, but it's got a little bit of wear up here, and this neck is comfortable, but it still has a very slight C shape. And one day I was sitting around playing all my guitars, all the guitars I had, and there were things that I could pull off on the 72, and especially my 73 D-28, that when I got to this one, I stumbled just a little bit. David Grish stuff, let's see. That one. Tarnation, that one. I did pull it off pretty good there, so it's a matter of when I get used to this neck, and when I play it, I'm fine with it. And the same with the bridge spacing. But when I go to either of my 70s, which both have 2 1/4 inch bridge spacing and modified V neck, or not modified V, soft V necks, I'm just that little bit extra bit more comfortable on it, And they still sound pretty good. I mean, they still sound great. They only sound, this one beats it in comparison, no question. This is a fantastic sounding guitar. So anyway, that's why I passed on this guitar, because the neck is just not quite 100% for me. It's 95%. But I have 2 other guitars that have necks at 100%, and both of my Prues, my Pru OMDs, they're 100%, and they also have wider necks with 1 3/4 inch and 2 3 or 5/16, wider, just a little wider. So they are 100%, and I mean 100%. So that's why I passed on this guitar. But man, I agonized over it, and it's not a cheap guitar, so that was a lot of it too. That's one of the reasons why I sold my other 39 and bought us into a 70s, is because I have less money invested in it for what will never be my number one guitar. The Pru OMBs are always going to be the number one because that's what they're intended to be. So, man, I agonized over it, but I ended up passing on it. But I tell you, the guy that bought it, this is as good of a D-18 as you're ever going to get. Believe me. Unless you go with the 37 D-18 with the wider neck and the wider spacing and all that. But I still, if I had both of them sitting there, I would take the 39 over the 37, because I like the sound of the rear X bracing, which is tighter, punchier sound. This guitar has had a couple modifications done. It's had the popsicle removed, which I did, and it's had the bridge turned into a true vintage. It has a K&K pickup in it, so you can use it for gigging. And it's had 3 neck resets, so it should be stable, But, it has had a couple modifications done to it. I did a video where I compared the 37 and the 39. I've done that at least a couple times. And every time I say, man, I like that punch that the 37 has. And the other reason I didn't buy this is because it is a great D-18, but I have a D-28, 1941 authentic, and when it comes down to it, I'm a D-28 guy. I love D-18s, but when it comes down to it, I'm a 28. I just want the 28 sound. And to me, that 41 D-28, yeah, if I had it and this one sitting there, I'd pick up the 41. Even though this is a terrific guitar. That's the thing is, people say, oh, you can say how it's such a terrific guitar all day long, but it might not necessarily be your first choice. And so when you're playing one, you can only have one first choice, So that's the reasons why. So I'm just explaining this to, it's a philosophical thing is what it is to why a guitar that is really fantastic might not be your number one choice, because there's slightly more fantasticer guitar out there. Sorry, I'm still dry from waking up. And also the thing for me is that sound is not always the number one thing. So even though this guitar sounds tremendous, and it might be the best sounding of all those guitars that I mentioned, it definitely sounds better than either of my 70s, a little bit. 70s sound good, but this guitar sounds better. And a lot of you are going to prefer the D-18 sound over the D-28 sound. So a lot of you might be D-18 guys. You might like that sound. A lot of you might pick this D-18 over either one of my Prues. And that's fair, totally fair. But for me, the sound is not the number one thing. The number one thing for me is always the neck. How does the neck feel in my hands? How does the bridge spacer? How does it feel? That pushes it over the edge. And if I have a guitar that feels perfect and doesn't quite sound as good as another one, I'm taking the feel every single time. I want a guitar that sounds good, but the feel is going to be the number one. That's going to be the weighted criteria. So this guitar sounds good, and believe me, I agonized over it. And I decided I'm going to put my money into a downhill mountain bike instead. So, But man, I was on the hunt for one of these for quite a while. Kept looking at it, kept looking. So I may regret selling, and I may. We'll see. That sounds good though, doesn't it? Especially in this room. Okay, let's see if I can come up with a tune. Let's put a capo on. I haven't put a capo. I'm not sure I put a capo on this guitar. It's been quite a while, anyways. Yeah, I did in one of the other videos. I put it up there and I put Sartell stuff on it. Let's just play something. guitar. Alright, let's get this thing out of here. It's gonna ship out in the next week or two. I just thought I'd play a little bit more and talk about how come I let such a great guitar go. It's a good guitar though, man. I got it for another couple of weeks. This is the part where I would sing if I could sing. Wow, what a good guitar. It's really responsive, super responsive. The action is doing great. Hasn't budged. Right about 92 thousandths of an inch on the low E. Super good. Saddle's great. Aged guitars, man. The thing about aged guitars, I've said before, is I don't mind playing them. You know, I'm not worried about scratching this guitar. You'll never know if I scratched it. You know, it looks good. It feels good. I love the finish cracking. You know, they really are fun to look at and I don't know. They just look good to me. I don't like shiny new guitars. It is a new guitar, but I don't like shiny guitars. And you know, with the cracking and the aging, and it's not excessive aging. It just looks like a 39. It's been well taken care of. But I really like finish checking. Finish checking to me is what really does it. And it just looks, it feels. If you handed it to me, it could almost pass for a 39. I think a real 39 to have more repairs to it. I don't think I've ever seen a pre-war. Didn't have cracks in it and significant belly and, you know, things that were wrong with it. And you don't have that in here. You got all the looks and everything, but wow, nice guitars. Okay, all right. I'm gonna get out of here. Pop this up there, and might play this a little bit more. See you later.